Hi, folks. I am Connie Zabel-Schmucker, Advocacy Director for Bicycle Garage Indy. And we Spotlight on Bicycling tonight is going to be featuring the B&O Trail. And we've got Jeff Smallwood from the B&O Trail Association that's going to discuss the progress that they've been making and the progress they will be making on the B&O Trail. Next Spotlight will be June 21st. It will be about the Pogues, Pathway Over Pogues group and their efforts to fundraise for the Noland Avenue Bridge, which is a linchpin for the Pogues Run Greenway. So we'll learn more about that in about a month. And Spotlight is now going to go to monthly. It'll be the third Monday of the month. As it's gotten nicer weather, more people are out bicycling rather than I had started this as a wintertime activity and kept going with it, but we'll continue to do them monthly through the summer, and then maybe in fall and winter picks them up a bit more frequently. So with that, I will go ahead and turn this over to Jeff. I need to go ahead and get the screen up. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I'm going to be sharing the screen, and Jeff's going to be giving me directions of when to go to the next slide. So,
okay. Yeah, actually, the B&O Trail Association is a nonprofit. It's an all-volunteer organization with no paid staff. What I'll do, I'm going to give some background and history of the B&O Trail project, some of kind of bring you up to date with the Next Level Trail Grant, and then also talk about our fundraising bike ride. So go ahead to the next slide, Connie. Okay, so our vision has always been to try to get people out walking, jogging, biking, and riding along a beautiful linear trail in Indiana. Next slide. And more specifically, to develop a recreational trail on the property that was previously owned by the B&O Railroad and running from Indianapolis to Montezuma, Indiana. Next. So this is the overview of the entire long-range vision for the B&O Trail. As you can see at the east end of the map, it goes all the way into downtown Indianapolis. That will actually be, it will run into Michigan Street, just west of the White River. And from there will be bike lanes that the city has planned that continue down onto downtown, where you can connect to the White River Trail or the Cultural Trail or the entire Indy Greenway system. It will proceed west through Speedway and then continuing west through Claremont and south of Brownsburg, and then continue across Hendricks County to North Salem, going west through the north side of Putnam County. It'll go through the town of Rochdale and then Russellville, and then it kind of makes its way in a bit of a southwesterly direction down to the small town of Montezuma. Montezuma is right on the Wabash River, and there's actually a beautiful bridge over the river there. We were able to get the DNR to help us preserve that bridge several years ago, and a local group of volunteers in that area has actually been able to successfully put decking on that trail and actually make it a usable bridge crossing across the Wabash River. And it's really quite beautiful there. I've been out there to visit that, and it's a nice spot to see. Although at this point, there is not much trail going in either direction from the bridge, but at least the bridge is there, and that'll be a huge asset to have there once we get out that far. Next slide. So what have we been able to do over the years that we've been an organization? We've successfully raised well over $3 million through grants and other contributions. And that does not include the recent Next Level Trail Grant that I'll be talking about later. We were able to purchase over 17 miles of corridor from CSX Transportation in Hendricks County. And we've completed over 6 miles of paved trail done over 4 phases. Next, please. So yeah, I'm going to the next one. That was just a reminder that the next few slides are going to continue with some of the things that we've been able to do. So in Green Street in Brownsburg, which by the way is the same as State Road 267. So as the State Road enters Brownsburg, the name changes to Green Street. And at where the trail crosses Green Street, we have a parking lot and we have a shelter house there that the Brownsburg Rotary Club helped us finance. Next, please. Under Ronald Reagan Parkway, we've got a tunnel, which was provided by Hendricks County government. Back when they were planning Ronald Reagan Parkway, they were willing to commit to doing an overpass over the B&O Trail there, which was at that point undeveloped. It was just an abandoned rail corridor, but they put in the overpass and a nice tunnel. And then when we developed the trail there, we had murals painted on the entire inside of the tunnel. If you go to the next slide, it shows an example of one of the murals there. This one is particularly interesting because it was done by a grade school class, I think from Kingsway Elementary School, that the art teacher sketched out the design and then put numbers in there. And then the kids all painted by number to fill in the design. And we ended up with this really nice mural, which is a collage of scenes from around Indiana, like iconic images from around Indiana. So, but the entire tunnel is full of different pictures like that. Next, please. Another thing we were able to do where the trail crosses Green Street, since that is a fairly busy road, it's a state highway, we were able to install what's called a hawk crossing signal there. It's a user activated signal. So the trail users walk over, push a button, and within just a few seconds, the light turns red, stopping the motor vehicles. And so the trail users can cross, and then after several seconds, the lights go back to flashing and the motorists are allowed to proceed. So that's been a pretty successful signal. It's been well received by both motorists and trail users. Next. Another accomplishment and a big project was building a bridge over Whitelake Creek. When the railroad was abandoned back in the early 90s, they took off all the tracks and all the bridges, and all that was left were the concrete abutments. And so all the steel structure that you see there had to be engineered and built on top of that old abutment there, as well as some abutments that are on both sides of the creek on the banks. But that was a major project. Next. The next slide is a picture looking from the bridge, looking north along the creek during the winter where there's some snow along the banks. It's very scenic at that spot. Next. And this is a landing, kind of landing deck area that jets out from the bridge so that when people want to stop and just enjoy the views, they can step out there and they're not obstructing the movement of people who are using the trail. So that's a really nice feature to the bridge. Next. And this is just some people enjoying riding over the bridge during one of our bike rides. You can move ahead. So out at the very end of the trail, the far west end of it, it ends at County Road 500E. And we have a parking lot there. It's just a temporary parking lot that's basically gravel and asphalt millings that have been spread out. And this was done almost entirely by donated materials. There was a company, Grady or O'Grady, I forget exactly, paving company, was doing a project in Brownsburg and was willing to bring out a bunch of the crushed stone that they didn't need and a bunch of asphalt millings that they had ground up from parking lots and streets that they were redoing in Brownsburg. And Hall Virgil on our board was instrumental in getting them to donate that materials. But they not only donated the material, but they actually allowed this guy that you see in this picture on the front loader here, basically spend an entire day out there spreading out all the stuff and packing it down and making a nice usable parking surface. So that was a nice in-kind donation from one of our local contractors. Next slide. So this map shows you what we currently have as far as trail, and that's the entire green strip going in the east to west direction. So on the far right side of the map is Raceway Road, and that is the county line between Hendricks and Marion counties. And that's where the trail begins, the paved trail. You'll notice just to the north of that is Lucas Oil Raceway, that yellow square. So you're very close to that. Just to the west of that, it crosses Ronald Reagan Parkway. And along Ronald Reagan Parkway on both sides of the road, there's actually a trail So we've got great connectivity there where people can, from the north or the south, can access the B&O Trail along the Ronald Reagan Parkway Trail. And then just slightly west of that, there's where it says Future Trailhead, there's going to be a park built by the town of Brownsburg on the north side of the trail there. It will be called Virgil Park in honor of Diana and Hall Virgil. Diana started the B&O Trail Association back in the early 90s and has been instrumental in our progress and is still very active on our board. And then continuing west, you notice it connects to the Bicentennial Trail, which goes south from the B&O Trail. And that goes down and connects into various residential areas of Avon. And continuing west at the Northfield Drive, the town of Brownsburg recently built tunnels that go under, one of them goes under 300 N, and the next tunnel goes under Northfield Drive. So you can cross that whole kind of complicated intersection there without ever having to cross any streets. And it's a wonderful addition to the trail there for safety and convenience. And then continuing west, there's another park there called Cardinal Park. It's owned by the town of Brownsburg, and there's parking there, and there's also restrooms. Excuse me. Then we continue west, and you get to the Green Street Trailhead, which I've mentioned before is where we have a shelter house help facilitated by the Brownsburg Rotary Club, and that's where we have the Hawk crossing signal. And then west of that, you cross Whitelake Creek, and then at the very far west end of that at 500 E is where you have the, so right now it's just a gravel or a temporary parking area. So that's the current state of things. So why don't we move on to the next slide. So one thing that's been important to us is our partnership with the town of Brownsburg. In the early years when we first started doing the trail, we really had very minimal support from any of the towns or county. We were pretty much on our own as a nonprofit, but beginning around 2011, we had already built some of the trail as a paved trail, and we transferred to Brownsburg 1.8 miles of trail from State Road 267 going east to 300 N. So basically the part of the trail that goes along the south side of Brownsburg. And they paid us some money for that. And we used those funds as part of our match for the next phase of construction, which was from State Road 267 west to County Road 500E, which is where it currently ends. Then in 2015, the third bullet point indicates that we transferred 0.9 miles of undeveloped corridor to Brownsburg, and then they built the trail and they maintain both that section and of course the 1.8 I mentioned previously. So Brownsburg currently owns and maintains 2.7 miles of the 6.25 miles total that we have built. Next slide. We've also gotten over the years some assistance from the Hendricks County Parks Department. A couple of times in both 2015 and 2018, they allowed some of their employees and they loaned us some of the equipment, like a bobcat to be able to push over small trees and a wood chipper to be able to grind up small, debris that we would cut. And we did some clearing between 500E continuing west 2 miles to County Road 250E. So for the next 2 miles of undeveloped trail, we had already done some clearing but with the assistance of the County Parks Department. Next slide. And this is just a picture of some of our volunteers and some of their staff out there doing some clearing in that area. And next. But that was really a fairly crude level of clearing. To really get serious about doing any construction out there, we had to clear a much wider path, at least 20 feet wide. And so this past winter, we hired a contractor, and he and his crew cleared a 20-foot wide path for that entire 2 mile width. And you can see in these pictures that they were taken right after it had snowed. And he's in one of the pictures, the guy that had the contract. And it shows how nice and open it is through there. It's really quite inviting, even though it's still just fairly rough gravel when you're actually out there walking on it or riding on it. It is rideable by, say, a gravel bike or a mountain bike, not suitable for road tires, but it's actually kind of fun. Some of my buddies and I in the winter especially like to go out there and ride just the rough ballast in this 2 miles of undeveloped trail. So next. So that brings us to our next level trail grant. The state allocated a couple of years ago $90 million to trails. The money came from the sale, part of the sale of the toll road in northern Indiana. And it was a whole bunch more money, but 90 million is the amount that was allocated for trails. This money is being administered by the Department of Natural Resources. And the way it is set up is there are 3 grant cycles or 3 rounds, and any group or agency that receives a grant can only receive 1 grant. So once you get one, you can't apply for another one. Next, please. So in the second round, back in March of 2021, we were notified that the B&O Trail Association was awarded a grant. The amount of money that DNR is actually giving us is 4.58 million. The total project cost is about 5.9 million, and the difference is local matching money that we provide. It's either funds or some of the match is made up as land that BOTA already owned. We also got a significant matching funds from the Central Indiana Community Foundation in Marion County. And so there are actually two sort of phases to this. It's going to go eastward from the current, east terminus at Raceway Road. It'll go east to a little ways east of Girls School Road, where it will connect with the section of B&O Trail that the Speedway Trails Association is building. I'll get into that a little more in just a couple minutes. There's already a tunnel under Girls School Road, so that's nice. We don't have to do any great expense there. But then the other phase is that going westward from the current trail, it will extend all the way out to 50W in Hendricks County. So that's almost to State Road 39, which is in the center of the county. And it will include finishing the parking lot at 500E, making it a paved lot rather than just the rough gravel that it is now. And there will also be an equestrian trail put in parallel to the pedestrian and biking trail. So let's just go on from there. So this is an overview of the whole thing, and I apologize, a little bit detailed to see. It would actually be better if it was not on this topographical map, because all that topographical stuff on there just makes it a little hard to make out the county roads and all that kind of thing. But I'll kind of walk you through it. In the middle is the bold green line, which is the existing trail, as I just showed you in previous slides. At the east end of that is Raceway Road. And so the red dashed line going east of that for about a mile and a half to 2 miles, I forget the exact distance, but that's going to just a little east of Girls School Road. And if you'll notice, just to the east of that is I-465. There's a nice big 465 symbol up there that shows you the interstate. The Speedway Trails project will extend the B&O Trail west from Speedway. It'll go under 465, where there's already a tunnel. Thanks to the foresight, Diana Virgil really lobbied NDOT hard a few years ago. When they were reconstructing the west leg of 465, they actually built a tunnel there for the trail to accommodate the trail, so that when we got to that point, we would be able to go under 465. And so that's the Speedway Trail Association will be doing that, and we'll be connecting at that point. If you go to the west side of the map, or left side, the trail will extend. That red dashed line is where it extends westward from the current end. And it'll go all the way out to 50W. But if you notice a black spot right there in the middle, I think that is explained a little bit further in, maybe if you go to the next slide. Yeah. So this is just the Hendricks County portion. And it's the red dashed line. And then near the left side of this, where the black bold line on this slide, we actually own that. But the little blue square or rectangle, there are some parcels. It's 6 small parcels that we don't own. And so the problem is, since we don't own it, we can't build anything on it right now. So our plan and what we've committed to DNR is that we will take the trail along the dashed line out to County Road 250E. Then bicyclists or walkers, if they want to, will have to get out on the county road, proceed north about a 1/4 mile, and then west about, I think it's about 1.5 miles to Maplewood. That's the crossing of County Road 500N. And we will have a parking lot built there. That'll be part of the project. And then the trail will continue from that point another 1.5 miles to County Road 50W that doesn't show on this particular map. This is more of a blow up just to show that workaround that we're going to have to do in the Maplewood community. We are going to try to acquire that land in the blue rectangle. If we can do that, DNR has said they can be flexible and allow us to change the project so that we can complete this black bold line and just shorten the trail farther on the west end, because it's really more desirable, obviously, to have the continuous trail for as far as we can get rather than jumping over a mile and a half and then picking it up again. So, but that's the plan as of now. And that's the reason why, is that we've got a small gap there that we don't own. Next slide, please. So this is a timeline, and I hope it's not too confusing here, but it's done in quarters. So Q2 2021, that's right now. So land acquisition is starting now and is scheduled to potentially continue until the third quarter of next year, 2022. That's both the Marion County and the Hendricks County sides, all kind of lumped into one there. Design and engineering, the next bullet point, is also starting right now, Q2 of 2021, and is allowed to continue possibly as long as 2022, the third quarter of 2022, just like the land acquisition. And then as soon as that stuff is done in Q4 of 2022, we would start going through the whole bid process. And there's quite a bit to that. There's putting together the bid specs, there's publicizing that we're having bids, there's collecting bids from contractors, evaluating them, determining who gets the bid, and then doing contracts with those companies, and then actually giving them the go ahead to start construction. So there's quite a bit involved in that, just 2 words, bidding process. And that's why it actually covers a couple of quarters there. And then finally, once that's all done, we can start construction. So it's a little, frankly, a little deflating to think that we're all excited about getting all this money and that we're not even talking about starting construction until the first quarter of 2023. But the fact is, this is a very conservative timeline that we put together in our application just to make sure that we would fall within our project scope that DNR expects us to do. We actually expect to move much more aggressively than this and hope to be well ahead of these numbers. And one of the things that we're going to try to do, since there's less acquisition to do in Hendricks County, we may go ahead and start the bidding and construction in Hendricks County well before Marion County. So we might have construction going on there at the same time that we're still doing land ac and design work in Marion County. So, but that's kind of our official timeline according to what we committed to with NDOT. So next, please. So what are some of the challenges of developing a trail and maintaining a trail? The maintenance of a completed trail is always a lot of work, a lot of expense. There are weather events. When you have a heavy rains, you can get flooding that erodes part of the trail, or maybe the areas along the side of the trail. Down trees are a constant thing. Every time we get a big thunderstorm, we've got to down at least one tree across the trail that, some volunteers have to go out there and cut and remove from the trail. There's ongoing mowing and trimming and things like that. There's trash pickup. And then root damage to asphalt is the nemesis of all asphalt trails everywhere where there's trees. And nobody's quite figured out how to prevent that, but we're working on it. We keep trying to figure out ways to improve that and work with our designers to think of ways to mitigate that, but that's always an issue. Then there's the fundraising. Because we're a nonprofit organization, we don't have the taxing ability. And so we're dependent on fundraising efforts through grant applications. And so that's a constant effort that has to be put into it. And then there's the acquisition and encroachment issues. Not only is there the acquisition, the purchasing of all these parcels that I mentioned, both in Marion and Hendricks County, and continuing farther west as we look even farther into the future, but there's also the encroachment issue where when the abandoned corridor sits out there for 10 or 15 years, adjacent property owners have a tendency to start utilizing it as if it were their own land. They might build a shed out there. They may dump concrete or tires or whatever out there. And so we're constantly having to work with things like that, basically just to protect our property rights, because we spent a lot of money, a lot of our own money and a lot of government money to buy this corridor. And we have to protect the title to that corridor and the access to that corridor. So next, please. So I mentioned fundraising. We've got an event coming up. It's our annual fundraising bike ride. It's on June 12th this year. And go on. There's just some smiling people from a ride a couple of years ago. The check-in will be from 7:30 to 9 o'clock at Williams Park in Brownsburg. This is one of our participants from last year. She's obviously got a mask on. Last year, we were really strict with our COVID mitigation protocols. I've talked to our county health department, and because of the place that we're in right now, our policy is going to be that if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask when you approach the check-in tables or the food tables at the SAGs. But if you've not been vaccinated, we are asking that you do wear a mask around, again, at any of the check-in tables or food tables, basically anytime you're around any of our volunteers. That's probably my biggest concern, is just protecting the safety of our volunteers. But so check-in 7:30 to 9, Williams Park in Brownsburg. And next slide. And there are 4 routes to choose from. There's 12, which obviously tends to be for beginners and kids, families with small kids. We've got a 25-mile route, a 46 and a 62-mile route. And as usual, the 46 and 62-mile routes go out to North Salem, which I showed you on the overall map of the trail. It's at the far northwest corner of Hendricks County. And we go through there. But one thing that's different this year is the 62-mile is going to go kind of in more of a southerly direction from there. It'll go through the town of Danville and then back up north to go back to Brownsburg from Danville. One of the reasons I went that way this year is, one, just for a variety. I like to change the route from time to time. But 2, I was really putting an emphasis on having good, smooth roads this year. And some of the roads up around that North Salem area are a little bit rough. And so by going down toward Danville, it really gets into some nice, smoothly paved roads. So I hope people will enjoy that. And we're having our SAG in Danville at Ellis Park, which is one of the nice parks in the town of Danville. Next, please. And there will be, as usual, in non-pandemic years, there will be lunch and live music after the ride. And so that's something to look forward to when you register. And here's, again, some smiling riders from previous years. So next, please. So if you're interested in registering for the bike ride, you can go to botrail.org. There's a link there for the bike ride. You can click and see a lot more detailed information, and you can register. Also, if you're not wanting to do the ride or not able to do the ride, if you were interested in supporting the project, if you go to that same website, there will be another button there for making a donation, and you can make a contribution to the trail project as well. SEBA members, I would note, if there are any SEBA members looking at this, are entitled to ride free of charge because of the relationship we have with the SEBA Bicycle Club and the SEBA Foundation. And you just have to check in as a SEBA member. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to be done this year. In the past, that's always been signing a sheet of paper. But I know last year they had people check out on a website and didn't do the paper signing when you got to the ride. So frankly, I'm not sure how that's going to be done. If you're a SEBA member, just check with the club and see what they're suggesting. Also, I would note that some SEBA members choose to register for the ride, even though they don't have to, just as a donation to the organization. So also something to think about. So I think that's it. You might check the next slide, or there's not a next slide. So I guess that's the end of it. So that's the conclusion of my formal presentation. I would be happy to entertain any questions.
I haven't seen anything in chat at this point, so if anybody would like to ask any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask away. I actually am very excited about the progress and the fact that the B&O is going to continue to expand. One of my goals this year, I hope, is to go to the B&O Trail 6 miles that are done and actually ride it. We've highlighted it on Bicycle Garage Indy's our ride spot. We have a route specifically for that, and we're going to be highlighting it as a challenge in June. We're highlighting several different trails around, and one of them is going to be the B&O. It's kind of funny. I had all these wonderful plans pre-pandemic last year. The ride spot rides, as everybody had all sorts of plans pre-pandemic, with the ride spot routes that we had created, of actually having some like Monday night rides that would be on the 12 routes that we highlight in our stores. We've actually come up with probably 30 or 40 different routes around Marion County and surrounding counties.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to kind of highlight those as having, short group rides. But that didn't happen. So we just, we can do challenges and encourage people to go to specific trails, and then they get some kind of incentive or prize
Uh-huh.
or for, virtual high five type thing. So we're planning on doing that with the B&O Trail in June to have that. So if somebody rides it, they'll get whatever we've come up with our incentives for that. So
Right.
look for that.
That's great.
And then we'll also put information in our next newsletter about the B&O Trail and the B&O Bike Ride. But yeah, I still plan to get over there and ride the 6 miles, well, actually 12-mile round trip, and see what's out there, because it's really, it's been a long time coming, and I'm sure just having the miles that you do have, it's gratifying to see people out there riding on it.
Well, the use of the trail during the last year, during the pandemic, was just phenomenal. And I think trails all over the country saw the same thing. But
Yeah.
people were really looking for a way to get out of the house and to get some sanity in their lives. And so getting out into nature and being able to walk or ride on trails was really appealing to people. So I think it more than ever, even more than ever, really highlighted the value that trails have to our communities.
Yeah, I think overall it really did. I know from a personal standpoint, I live a mile from Fall Creek Trail, and it was actually in April, May, and beginning of June, I couldn't even ride on the trail because there were so many people walking and riding. So later that tailed off a little bit, but getting on my bike last year was my sanity. My sanity break kept me sane. And it was also gratifying to see so many people out either walking or biking on the trails that and you're right, it was nationwide. There's so many people out enjoying, and they still are out
Yeah,
riding.
they seem to have kept doing it.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody else has any additional questions. And by the way, congratulations for getting the next level trail
Thank
funding.
you. Thank you. We're excited.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And also it's exciting. There's going to be additional funds in the legislature from this last session for
Yes, I
next
saw
level
that.
trails.
I saw
Um,
that.
I'm a little confused whether they got an extra 60 million on top of the 90 million, or if it's an extra 60 million beyond what has already been awarded. But regardless, there's
Yeah.
at least another 30 million, if not
Well,
60
I
million
was
out there.
I was reading it as 60 million on top of the 90 million, but maybe I was just reading it with rose-colored glasses. But
I'm hoping that's what it is. It would be great because I thought, but what I had read in a couple of accounts was that's going to be on top of the 51 million already, but I'm not sure.
okay,
I haven't seen anything to tell me one way or the other. So,
yeah. But one thing that I think is precedent setting about that is that this is really, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the first time the state legislature has ever appropriated any money for trails.
yes, that is the case.
And so that's a kind of like you say that's kind of like game changing that the
Yeah,
legislature. Of course, it's
yeah.
also could be that they're having to spend all that pandemic money that they were given by the federal government, and so could be a one-time thing. But
Well, I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that they see the benefit of all of the development of trails and how that helps people throughout with health and wellness and recreation and all of that. My state representative is Carrie Hamilton, who is
Oh,
a
yeah.
big trail supporter.
I know Carrie, yeah.
And so I'm sure she will continue to push for additional funding
Mhm.
as they have it available. So, so yeah, but it's exciting to see that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all these trails in the next, 5 to 10 years that the Next Level Trail is funding, because Next Level Trail is really jumpstarting a lot of these trails. They have to be done fairly quickly in a,
Mhm.
it's not going to be 20 years from now. It's going to be within the next
Yeah. Oh,
5
yeah.
years or so. But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of trails that were built just with I forget how much, was it 20 million that Mitch Daniels,
Yes, 20.
yeah, that Mitch Daniels had done many years ago.
Yeah.
And that jump started a whole bunch of trails throughout the
Yeah.
state. And so having 90 million, or well, we'll say 120 to 150 million, um, somewhere in that range over the next, it will just really help spearhead some of these trail developments that have been just waiting for funds.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, and thank thank you very much for giving us the background and all of that. And if you, any final words that you'd like to say?
No, just thank you for letting us tell about our project and our road and our trail and our bike ride that's coming up to help us spread the word.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you out there. Thanks.
Mhm.
Take
Bye.
care.